When I say gorilla, what's the first thing that pops into your head? Is it some kind of King Kong pounding its chest, or maybe
A gentle giant.
Well, today we're going to peel back those myths and get to the real story behind one of our closest and seriously powerful relatives in the animal kingdom.
So, let's start with the big question. Can we actually talk to animals? I mean, sure, we can communicate with our pets, right? We teach a dog to sit, we try to teach a cat to do anything, and mostly fail, but a real conversation, back and forth, that feels like pure sci-fi.
Well, what if I told you that for one gorilla, the answer was yes? This story, it starts with an incredible individual who didn't just question that idea, she completely blew it apart. And in the process, changed everything we thought we knew about animal intelligence. So let's dive in. Meet Koko. And Koko wasn't just any gorilla, not by a long shot. She was a gorilla who could talk. Seriously, after years of incredible work with researchers, Koko learned how to communicate with us using sign language. And what she revealed was a mind that was, wow, just so complex and so full of emotion. And just look at what she could do. Her abilities were absolutely astounding. We're talking about a vocabulary of over 1,000 signs. She didn't just copy them, she used them to express herself. She could show affection for her pet kitten. And get this, she even told a lie. There's this famous story where she broke a sink, and when her handler asked what happened, she signed that her tiny little kitten did it. That's not just mimicry, that's genuine thought.
Now you might be thinking, how is this possible? Well, maybe Koko's incredible mind shouldn't be a total shock. Because when you get down to the genetic level, the connection between us is just undeniable. Gorillas share a whopping 98% of their DNA with us humans. But, that shared DNA isn't just about brains. It's also the blueprint for their legendary physical strength. And their power, well, it's full of some really surprising twists.
Okay, so when you look at a silverback, what do you see? Pure muscle, right? And you think, okay, that's where all the power is. But the real secret to their insane strength, it actually starts way deeper. It's in their bones. Yeah, check this out. Our bones are kind of brittle, right? But a gorilla's skeleton, it's unbelievably tough. Their bonds can actually flex under pressure, almost like spring steel. This is how they can do things like hang their entire body weight from just one arm, or take hits that would literally shatter our own skeletons. So, here's where it gets really interesting. Pound for pound, a top human athlete and an average silverback can lift about the same ratio, around 2.5 times their body weight. But here's the kicker. An average silverback weighs about 180 kilograms. So, do the math. That's a casual 450 kilo lift. And remember, that's just the average one. So what's the max? What are they really capable of? Well, in some tests, a gorilla was recorded lifting, wait for it, 815 kilograms. That is absolutely unbelievable. To give you some perspective, that's like lifting a small car. And this is where the story gets even crazier. All that power, all that car-lifting strength, is fueled almost entirely by a vegetarian diet. Just plants. So how on earth is that even possible? The secret? It's a digestive superpower. Let's compare them to another big plant eater, the panda. A panda eats bamboo all day, but gets hardly any energy from it, because its body can't break down the really tough stuff called cellulose. Gorillas, on the other hand, their digestive system is a powerhouse. It can break down that cellulose, unlocking all the protein and energy they need to build those incredible bodies. Okay, so you've got this incredible combination of brain and brawn. So how does all that managed? How do they live together? Well, it's all governed by a really strict and honestly fascinating social code. And it all revolves around one dominant leader.
Life in a gorilla troop has some very clear, unwritten laws. Rule number 1, there's only one boss, the silverback. What he says goes, period. Rule number 2, you can't have two silverbacks in the same territory. If they meet, they will fight, and it's often to the death. And rule number 3, and this one is pretty amazing. If a mother dies, the big, tough silverback leader will actually adopt her babies and raise them himself. So we've seen with Koko that they can learn our language. But what about their language? Out in the wild, gorillas have this incredibly rich and complex way of talking to each other, and it's one we are still just struggling to understand. I mean, for decades,
Scientists have been out there watching them. They've documented this whole complex system of hand gestures, tiny facial expressions, and all sorts of grunts and barks and roars. We can literally see them having conversations. We just have no clue what they're saying. And this mystery has led some scientists to propose a pretty radical idea. We know from Koko that we can teach them our language, but what if we tried to learn theirs? You know, we've been listening for so long, but we're not getting it. Maybe it's time for us to be the students for a change. But our fascination with them, it hasn't always been about understanding or respect. Sometimes it takes a much, much darker turn. When that desire to understand gets twisted into a desire for control, well, that's led to some really bizarre and pretty disturbing moments in our history.
This is going to sound like something out of a crazy old sci-fi movie, but it's apparently true. Back in the 1920s, the Soviet dictator Joseph Stalin is said to have ordered a top-secret project. The goal? To create a literal super soldier by crossbreeding humans and apes.
Thankfully, that terrifying experiment was a complete and total failure. It turns out that even with that 98% genetic match, the two species are just fundamentally incompatible. So that horrifying idea of an ape-man army, it never happened.
And that kind of brings us full circle, doesn't it? We've failed to copy their power. We can't really speak their language. We've tried to understand them on our terms, and it just doesn't seem to work. So maybe, after all of that, the best thing we can do isn't to control them or change them, but to just listen. To watch and to appreciate these incredible animals for exactly what they are.
If you enjoyed videos like this, give it a like and subscribe if you'd like to see more.